All right, so get ready because we're diving deep into the world of everyday English conversation.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
We've got this guidebook with us, and it's jam-packed with all these sample dialogues
It's amazing.
for like all kinds of situations, like what to say when you meet someone for the first time, or if you need to ask for directions, even how to gracefully make a quick exit from a conversation.
Though the polite escape.
Exactly, when you just got to get out of there.
It's an art form.
It really is. So much we take these little exchanges for granted, but
Oh, yeah?
they really are like these little dances with all these unspoken rules.
Absolutely, like a whole choreography.
So let's jump right in and start with meeting someone new, first impressions and all that.
Right.
The guidebook gives us a pretty basic dialogue here, introductions, a few questions about background, but
Sure.
is there more to it than just like swapping facts?
Absolutely. There's this unspoken agreement, to share information and kind of signal that you're open to connecting.
I like,
Think about it. When you ask someone, where are you from? It's not just about geography.
no.
You're showing interest, trying to find common ground.
So it's not just what you ask, but the fact that you're asking at all.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like saying, hey, I'm curious about you. Tell me more.
I like that. And then they respond and you react and boom.
Yeah.
You've got a little connection going.
It's like a spark.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Exactly.
So picture this. You're at a networking event, surrounded by new faces.
Okay?
These simple phrases, they become your secret weapons.
They really do. They're icebreakers.
Ah.
All right. So speaking of navigating unfamiliar territory, what about when you're totally lost?
Ah.
The guidebook dives into the art of asking for directions.
Ah, yes, a classic.
It's interesting because you're kind of relying on the kindness of strangers.
It's true. Anthropologists have actually observed this behavior across cultures.
Really?
Like, it's something universal almost. Like, we're hardwired to help each other find our way. Wow, that's fascinating. And the guidebook really stresses being polite here. Excuse me, could you please? And being clear and concise about where you're trying to go.
Right. No rambling stories about how you got lost.
Exactly. And don't forget that sincere thank you at the end.
Oh, it's crucial. It turns a transaction into a genuine connection.
Okay, next scenario. You're at a party trying to navigate a sea of unfamiliar faces.
All right. I like this one.
How do you break into those conversations and make a connection?
Well, this is where those little details become super important. Work hobbies, how you know the host.
Okay.
They're not just filler. They're clues to a person's identity, their passions.
I see. So instead of thinking, ugh, small talk, I should be listening for those clues.
Precisely. Look for those openings to go deeper.
You might discover a shared love for like that obscure band, or maybe you both secretly dream of opening a bakery.
You never know what could happen.
Exactly. Which reminds me, the guidebook also covers the art of complimenting someone.
Yes. Compliments.
They're like social currency, right?
Exactly. A way to express appreciation, create some goodwill.
So not just, you look nice, but something more specific, like, that color looks amazing on you.
Yes. Show that you're paying attention, being genuine.
It makes me think about those gift-giving cultures where every present comes with an unspoken obligation to reciprocate.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of like that, but with good vibes instead of material things.
I like that analogy.
Speaking of building rapport, the guidebook also talks about asking about someone's plans or their weekend.
Oh, sure. A classic conversation starter.
It's such a natural way to keep things flowing, Got any fun plans for the weekend?
And there's some psychology behind it, too.
Really?
When you ask about someone's plans, you're validating their choices and experiences.
So it's like saying, I care about what's important to you. The guidebook really emphasizes that friendly, open-ended tone.
Right. Encourage them to share without making it feel like an interrogation.
Okay, so we've covered meeting new people, asking for directions, navigating parties, even showering people with compliments.
Quite a lot.
But what about those moments when you need to make a smooth exit?
The art of the polite escape.
You don't want to seem rude, but you also don't want to be trapped in a conversation that's run its course.
It's a delicate balance. The guidebook has some helpful phrases, It was great chatting with you, or I really enjoyed our conversation.
So you're acknowledging the interaction, expressing appreciation, and maybe hinting at a future connection.
Exactly. Let's catch up again sometime.
Closing the loop gracefully, leaving them with a good feeling.
Precisely. Welcome back. We're continuing our deep dive, exploring those little everyday English conversations.
And I'm really curious about something you mentioned earlier about how these interactions can change so much depending on where you are in the world.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to forget that communication isn't just about words. It's about understanding the cultural context, those unspoken rules.
So how can we get better at reading those unspoken rules? Is it just a matter of reading up on different cultures?
That could be a good starting point. But honestly, there's no substitute for real-world experience. Just pay attention to how people communicate in different settings. Observe their body language, their tone of voice, even the topics they choose to discuss.
It's like those travel bloggers who experience culture shock, when they encounter different customs around greetings or personal space.
Exactly. What might seem perfectly normal in one culture could be a major faux pas in another, like the concept of personal space. For instance, standing close together might be a sign of warmth in one culture, but in another, it could be seen as intrusive.
Oh, yeah. I could see how that could lead to some awkward moments.
For sure. And it's not just about avoiding blunders, it's about building genuine connections. When you take the time to learn about someone's cultural background, it shows respect.
So it's not just about memorizing a bunch of rules, it's more about developing empathy and awareness.
Exactly. And it goes both ways. The best interactions happen when both people are aware of each other's cultural perspectives.
It reminds me of what you said earlier about nonverbal communication, like eye contact or facial expressions.
Oh yeah, those can have completely different meanings in different cultures.
A firm handshake might be seen as confident in one culture, but aggressive in another.
Exactly. Those nonverbal cues are super powerful and easy to misinterpret.
It makes you realize how much we rely on those subtle cues to navigate our social world.
And then there's humor, which can be really tricky to navigate across cultures.
Oh yeah, what one person finds hilarious, another might find offensive.
Exactly. Sarcasm, for instance, often relies on tone of voice and those subtle cues that might not translate well.
It's so dependent on shared understanding and context.
So if you're using humor, be mindful of the other person's cultural background. Maybe start with something more universal and see how they react.
That's great advice. So it seems like mastering English conversation isn't just about vocabulary and grammar.
Right.
It's about becoming a cultural chameleon, adapting to different styles and expectations.
I like that. It's a great way to put it. It's about understanding that communication goes beyond just words. It's about building bridges and connections.
And those connections can sometimes lead to the most unexpected and rewarding experiences.
Absolutely. Embracing cultural diversity can open up a whole world of perspectives and insights.
So as we continue exploring these English social situations, let's keep that idea of cultural context in mind.
It's a journey of continuous learning.
Yeah.
Challenging ourselves to step outside our comfort zones and embrace all those different ways of interacting.
I like that. And with that, I think we need to take a quick break to gather our thoughts before we dive into the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. We'll be back soon with more tips to help you become a more confident and culturally savvy communicator.
Okay, we're back and ready for the final part of our deep dive into English social interactions.
This is where it all comes together.
We've covered the basics of conversation,
Right.
the importance of being aware of cultural differences, but now let's get practical. What are some tips our listeners can use to navigate these conversations with more confidence?
Well, one of the most powerful tools you have is active listening.
Active listening.
It's not just about hearing the words, but really absorbing what the other person is saying, both verbally and non-verbally.
So it's not enough to just nod along.
And nodding's a good start, but it goes deeper than that. You really got to be present in the moment. Put away your phone. Resist the urge to interrupt and truly focus on their message.
It's like hitting the pause button on your own thoughts and giving them your full attention.
Exactly. And you got to show that engagement. Make eye contact, ask clarifying questions. All those signals show that you're genuinely interested.
It creates a sense of trust, like, hey, I see you, I hear you, I value what you're saying.
Absolutely. And when people feel valued, they're more likely to open up and share.
So active listening is more than just being polite. It's about creating a deeper connection.
Exactly. And when you combine active listening with that cultural sensitivity we talked about, you've got a recipe for building meaningful connections.
It's like those times when you felt truly heard in a conversation. You feel lighter, like there's a connection and understanding.
That's the power of active listening. It creates space for a real connection.
The guidebook also talks about practice, which makes sense. The more you do something, the better you get at it.
Exactly. But with social interactions, it's not about being perfect. It's about embracing those mistakes and learning from them.
It's like learning to dance. You're going to step on some toes, but eventually you'll find your rhythm.
Exactly. The more you practice, the more natural these interactions will feel. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Talk to people you meet, whether it's at a party, at work, or even just waiting in line at the store.
And each interaction, even the awkward ones, is a chance to learn.
Oh, absolutely. Pay
Yeah.
attention to how others communicate. See what works and what doesn't.
Okay, so we've talked about active listening practice,
Yeah.
but there's one more piece of advice, and it's a big one.
All right, lay it on me.
Be yourself.
Yes. Authenticity. That's key. When you're genuine, people can feel it, and it makes you so much more relatable.
Don't try to be someone you're not. Embrace those quirks. Let your personality shine through.
Because the best connections happen when we feel comfortable being ourselves, imperfections and all.
That's such a good point. So we've reached the end of our deep dive into English social interactions. We've explored the basics, the importance of culture active listening, the magic of authenticity.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And remember, communication is a skill you can learn. Keep practicing. Stay curious. And most importantly, have fun connecting with the people around you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
That's all for today. Until next time, happy conversing.